Our subject is a deceptively simple appearing Paris lamppost, one of the several designs that are used quite frequently. We've done something similar in a rounded lamp in this series, but here we have the boxed in version. And with a subject such as this is where it is helpful to, as well as looking at form, look at shape. Look at the shapes of these trapezoids, I guess they are, four-sided figures. We have one that we're drawing right now, we have one to the left, and we have one underneath. And as we look at the perspective angles, as we look at the view we get from down below looking up, we also want to pay attention to the shapes that are formed, not just the angles of the lines, because that gives us an added way of just working out how accurately are we drawing these. It's not just the angles, we want the lines to come together so that they create the same shape. And sometimes drawing these shapes, it can be a bit deceptive. We have to bear in mind that even the thickness of the lines of the metalwork in reality can actually change the proportions if we don't allow it when we're drawing. We have to be aware, am I drawing the actual glass only that we can see, or am I drawing to the outside of the metal? Am I drawing that band, that wider band of metal at the top as well, or am I adding that on? Because all of these things change our perception of the shape, of the proportions of these sides of the lamppost. So we need to be aware of what we're doing. I'm using a 0.3 millimeter pen, but I think possibly it was a little bit heavy in the end for the effect I was wanting to create. Possibly a 0.2 would have been a better choice. I get a bit mixed up now just doing this decorative section. It's not my best effort. And I probably try too much to actually copy the exact wrought iron pattern that we have sitting around the top of this lamp. Sometimes it's better just to approximate, in effect, to draw the effect of the pattern rather than the exactness. And you wouldn't think I would need to say that to myself, would you? But I probably made a mistake in trying to copy the detail there too exactly. And if I'd wanted to do it exactly, I would have been better off just grabbing a sheet of paper and seeing whether there was enough information to actually draw an accurate version of the metal filigree there before I committed with a pen to starting it in my actual drawing. Now down this side it's easier because of the foreshortening. We can't actually see particularly into any of the gaps, and so there really is just a silhouette of the major forms. So now we have this little, I think of this as a castle. It's like the top of a round tower at the corner of a medieval castle. And so now I'm just trying to approximate that. And we have these piercings, little windows, and then it's like there's a little crown above those. And the overall effect is a crown, which quite possibly was the inspiration for the design. I suspect these were put up when France was a monarchy. So now I'm positioning where these piercings are going to be, and notice that the piercings, the two in the center, are wider than the two on the edges because of foreshortening. And now I position these little bits that sit on top, which I draw too large, too tall. They extend the crown up too much, make it just a little bit too top heavy compared to what we have in reality. This drawing took me about 12 minutes to draw in real time. You're watching me draw it at 1.5 times speed. But I think this is a great subject. It's certainly one that, as a daily drawing practice, you could try hard to get it finished in 10 and just not fuss quite so much with some of the decorations as I did. Because really, I think the most benefit in this subject as a daily drawing exercise is to really work at getting the proportions of the lamp faces and sides and what we see underneath, to do that split between, in our head, between looking at form and considering the overall shape and therefore the perspective angles and the foreshortening, but also concentrating on the shape of these sides as well and seeing them as just flat two-dimensional shapes and seeing if we can get those shapes in proportion also on our paper. And so now we have these brackets, these rounded brackets from each of the corners to attach the lamp to the pole. And it's also a bit of a challenge, and where we can start to see how successfully we've got our proportions, because it becomes increasingly difficult to line things up in our reference if we haven't got a reasonable degree of accuracy. And so after that, now we have the additional challenge of the ellipses and this decorative column capital in effect. It's perhaps closer to a Corinthian capital than any other of the Greek orders, but it's really just an imaginative column capital that's been put on the top to give it part of a neoclassical illusion. And so I don't get that left-hand side of the capital done very well. I take it too far out. The angle isn't tight enough. And that does create a distorted effect. However, can't do much about that now except learn from my lesson, which is the whole point of these daily exercises. We learn the sorts of mistakes we're inclined to make, and we also learn the frustration of making them. And those two things together help us next time to perhaps put a mark and just second check our reference and where the mark, the dot maybe we've placed on the paper is, and just to double check whether it's actually in a good enough place. And given that we can always push a line a bit further out, or we usually can, possibly even to just be slightly conservative. Now we have the base, the top of the pole in effect. So I'm not being overly fussed about hatching for shade and shadow, but I just do a little bit here, and an indication of some of the fluting in the pole as well, on the pole as well. And now just getting the roundedness of that collar, and we're done. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. Look, this is a great exercise. It's a beautiful object to look at. It's not without its challenges, but it partly depends on just how detailed we want to go. We could make this a 30-minute drawing and take a lot more care with the detail. So, of course, you'll find the reference on my channel community page, and you can make it a 10-minute or a 30-minute drawing, whatever you want. But look, whatever you draw, however you draw it, however many minutes you take to draw it, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.